All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are here today to talk about big interview and interview preparation. My name is Jody Waldrop.
I'm Mike Despo.
And we are your career services team to help you with your interview preparation needs. So I will be leading this discussion, and Mike has an appointment to meet with the student to help with resume writing. So we will get started.
Go team, go Peak.
All right, go Peak. Okay. So it's not just one thing in regards to your interview preparation and your job searching. So it all kind of goes together with job searching, resume writing, and interview prep. So when it comes to it, you need a comprehensive plan. You need to actually follow through with what you're wanting to do. So first thing is to identify those goals. Things to ask yourself while you're job searching is what industry or type of employer do you want to join? What kind of work do you want to do? What kind of abilities do you have that you're going to be able to give to the job? So articulating these goals is really going to help you with your job search and your interview preparation. So it's really good to first take that time to just kind of get an overall picture of what you're going to be doing. And a good way to start your interview preparation is getting together your 30-second elevator pitch, which most of y'all have already heard about, which is where you introduce yourself in a 30-second time frame at a networking situation, or you have a 2-minute discussion of who you are in 2 minutes. And typically, this falls into that tell me about yourself question that is commonly asked in interviews. That's your 2-minute elevator pitch. So really being able to map that out early in your interview preparation is going to help you with your interview preparation overall. So things to think about with it are who are you and what do you want? So it's really good to already have done that. Goal setting, articulating those goals early so that you're able to answer this question. And then what can you contribute to that employer and to all employers? Mentioning your credentials, your education, experiences you've had, any soft skills that you're able to bring to the table are always good to mention in your 30-second elevator pitch. So think, where are you from and how did you get here? So it's always good to kind of go a little bit back to talk about where you're from. And then real or hypothetical, where are your goals, career goals overall, and how does that employer that you're interviewing with contribute to it, and what can you give to them as a worker? So what are your key competencies and skills? That's really the basis of your 30-second elevator pitch or 2-minute elevator pitch in an interview setting. So steps in any application is you research your employer. You've done the research within yourself. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? But you've also researched the employer and how does that match up to your overall goals. So it's really good to make sure you're a good fit. You've written your resume and you've written a targeted letter of application, so often known as a cover letter, where you spend a whole page talking about why you're great for this position and why you're so excited. So when you are at that point, you have already started outlining parts of your interview. So that's always really good that you've done all that really thoroughly so that you're prepared going into your interview process. So just to give a little background knowledge, we do have resources on what is a resume and presentations. But a resume is an online or paper document that strategically represents your education, credential, and experiences. So it's really helping connect the dots with all of your experiences to the employer. So oftentimes when you hear target your resume to the employer, it's really pulling from the job description or values of the company and finding ways to put that into your resume or your cover letter. So those are ways to be very strategic in catering your resume and cover letter to an employer to get an interview. So a resume has your experience, education, credentials, accomplishments, honors, volunteer experience, service experience. So anything and everything. Rule of thumb is if a monkey can't do it, then put it on your resume. So basically anything is resume worthy. And then letter of application, it's important to use the same font as your resume. But it's where you get to state your purpose and your enthusiasm for that job. And it describes your why. So oftentimes with students, I explain to them, it's good to talk about your passion and what brought you to this field. Why radiology, or why nursing, or why business? Where did that come into play? Just because employers do want to know that, and it helps it be a little bit more personable. So then the goal of every interview that employers often say are they're trying to answer 3 questions. Can you do the job? Do you have the strengths, skills, experiences? Will you love it? Are you motivated? Are you going to excel? Or is this just a job to get you to your next big thing? And can they tolerate working with you? Do you fit with that company? That is the 3 goals that most employers say is what they're hoping to gain from the interview process. So it is important to not only remember that, but also remember that you're interviewing them with, can you tolerate working with those coworkers you might have? And does it fit into your overall goals? So oftentimes this always goes back to that overall career goal setting and brainstorming of what type of work do you want to do. So really, these are the 3 goals. Can you do the job? Will you love it? And can they tolerate working with you that employers are hoping to get through an interview? So in terms of starting to prepare for the interview, you've done your resume, you've written your awesome cover letter, but looking into the mission and the values and the visions of the company, that's really going to help you with making sure it's a good fit, and it's going to help you start mapping out your interview preparation. Because they may ask you, like, how does our mission and vision pair up with you? Or where do you see yourself fitting in this company, and what's important to you? So knowing you've done the homework of that employer is really important. But also reviewing your resume. What knowledge and skills can you bring to the table, and how does it relate to what the employer is needing and asking for in this position? And using the language the employer uses in the job ad or description. That's, again, being strategic with using the verbiage, or if they mention a certain technology that's part of that job and you have experience with it, making sure you highlight that in your cover letter and resume. So really being strategic, and all of that's going to help you start preparing for the interview process. So after you've started preparing, you also need to start practicing. So with that, that's developing the elevator speech, so 30 seconds to a 2-minute synopsis of who you are, where you're from, where you're going, what your goals are, but also researching typical interview questions and answers. So how do you answer the, what's your greatest strength and weakness, or where do you see yourself in 5 years? So really thinking through those and scripting your responses. You can still come across organically in an interview setting, even if you have scripted your responses a little bit beforehand as you've practiced. So really important to do this in your preparation. But a tool that we have here through Career Services at SEC is a tool known as Big Interview. Big Interview is our online mock interview tool where you can access it from any computer online, and you can research and practice interview questions. This will help you really cater your questions to your industry or help you understand the general knowledge of interviewing. So it's a very robust tool. It's going to meet you where you're at, and we're going to go through a few parts of it in this presentation. But to get to it, you just need to go to our Career Services page /Big Interview, and you'll see the information on that page, and you'll click the button that says click here to set up an account and log in. When you go to that page, you'll be asked to input an organization code, which is 1964, also the year SEC was founded, so we wanted to make it really easy. And then you'll input your email. I do recommend students use a personal email over their student email for their Big Interview account, because more than likely you might be utilizing Big Interview more 6 months after graduating from SEC. So I just say, for technological reasons, just use a personal email that you have access to long after your time as a student. And then put your first, last name, and password. Simple as that. You don't need any special email or code other than the 1964. But when you get in, there are 2 tracks on the dashboard of Big Interview. There's the Fast Track and the Mastery Track. The Fast Track is great when you have an interview coming up in a few days, or you're prepping for our job fairs through Career Services, because it's an hour and 40-minute long video lessons. So they're very engaging. Some of them are very fun to listen to, in my opinion, but it only takes an hour and 40 minutes, which is less time than a typical movie. So you can finish that Fast Track in a movie-long session. But then the Mastery Track is a solid 6 hours and 15 minutes. So this is something that I recommend for any student about to graduate. If you want to get a very thorough knowledge of interview preparation, this is a really great track to go on. Both are going to give you what you need, but the Mastery Track does go way more in depth. And these are under the Learn tab in the Big Interview platform. Other things under the dashboard and the Learn tab are interview playbooks. These are to help you get that extra edge on competition in special circumstances. So some things that we will see are new graduate, military transition, career change, if you have a CV or resume gap. But my favorite is the introvert or too modest one, because every single student complains, I don't like bragging on myself. It just feels weird and awkward. So the introvert too modest is a really great playbook to look into and to do in Big Interview to help you be okay to brag about your accomplishments, because that's what an interview is all about. So Playbooks is really a good thing to tap into in Big Interview as well. So with practicing, you can start in terms of questions with general questions or based on your industry. So there are tons of industries listed in Big Interview with healthcare, the trades, engineering, IT. So based on your industry, there's competency and skill set like leadership, organizational skills, taking initiative. There's also even admissions questions for selective admissions into a competitive health science program or a scholarship program or even med school or law school. So even selective admissions questions are in the Big Interview platform, and even government and veterans as well. So all of these are mock interview questions that you can anticipate getting asked in that type of setting. So meet you where you're at based on what kind of interview you're going to be doing. And that is under the practice area of Big Interview. And in it, you can say, oh, I want to just start the basics. I've never done an interview. I want to do something easy. Or I'm seasoned and I know what I'm doing, but I want to be really challenged in these questions. So you can select how hard are these questions that you're going to be getting asked. But once you've selected that, a video will pop up and they'll ask the question and you can record your video response. You can record as many times as you'd like, and it saves to your My Videos. So you're able to review them based on how is my eye contact. Am I like Jody and I talk with my hands, because I do that in interviews and in presenting. So you can pick up on those nonverbal things in that mock interview, but you also can send it to myself or Michael Despo. You can send it to a faculty member. You can even share it with your family and friends that you love and trust to get their feedback on how you can improve your answer. So a very robust tool that is going to help you with getting the feedback you need. There's also interview story. So I often tell students that an employer is not going to remember a generic answer. They're going to remember a story. So when they ask you, tell us about a time where you demonstrated leadership, tell us about a time when you collaborated on a team, or a time when you failed or didn't meet a deadline, they want a story. They want you to lay out this beautiful art of a story, not just give them a generic answer. So Answer Builder in Big Interview is going to help you map out that story. So it is under the Learn tab, and it's called Answer Builder, and actually it's under the Practice tab, but it's a behavioral type question. So it uses the STAR method, which is situation and task. So you describe what's the situation, what's my approach, did I take, and what was the results and outcome. So it really helps you list out all the components. But at the end of it, you get to say, these are the competencies I demonstrated through this story. And then you could even save your answer and then print it out so that you can practice it with interview preparation. And the cool part about it is you can always go back. So if you had a situation, but a year later you had a better situation that demonstrates overcoming adversity in the workplace, you can always edit that story later on. So it's something that can grow with you. So that's the STAR method, and that's the Answer Builder in Big Interview. There's also the written curriculum, and this is great if you need just something really quick reference, you're reading all the information, but there's some components of it, like informational interview, I like to encourage students to look at if they're in career exploration mode, or even how do I follow up with an employer after an interview, or what can I say in a thank you letter or an email? So that's a really great place to look at just for a little bit more guidance on those components. And again, that's under the Learn tab as well. So preparing for interview day, so you've done the resume and cover letter, you got the call saying we want to interview you, and you're going in, and so how do you prep for that interview day? The most important thing to think about is what are you going to wear? So things to think about is making sure you're going shopping way before the interview so that you are prepared and you don't have that last stress shopping fiasco. And we do have a career closet on SEC's campus for all students to come in and get professional attire, because professional attire is expensive, and we know that not all students, especially students graduating, have that kind of money just laying around. So know that we do have a career closet on campus. But the day before, you want to lay out your outfit, you want to lay out your shoes, shine your shoes, what have you. But you also want to do some personal grooming. So oftentimes, you know, with men, like having your facial hair nicely structured, making sure you got a fresh haircut maybe. With women, I feel like we have a little bit more to worry about, like what kind of accessories am I going to wear? I always recommend don't overdo the accessories. Nail polish, I often say go with a nude nail polish or don't have any nail polish at all in case it chips. But also like how you're going to fix your hair. Oftentimes you can wear it back, or I always say go with your personal texture. So for me, I have naturally straight hair, so in an interview, I always straighten it. I've never curled it because then my curls won't fall and it won't get frizzy. So really thinking about what's going to work for you and make you feel the most confident day of. So really paying attention to that personal grooming factor. Print extra copies of your resume, study your resume and your cover letter, and then get plenty of rest. Even though it is really hard to do the night before an interview, really try to get that extra rest that you need. So dress for success. So we often say you're dressing for the interview, not the job. So what do we mean by that? That means you always want to go a step above when it comes to what you wear to an interview, because no one is ever going to dock you for dressing too fancy for an interview, but they will, you know, mention it if you didn't dress up enough for an interview. So it's always better to overshoot dressing up than undershoot it for an interview, is what I like to say. And again, we do have the career closet here at SEC to help you with acquiring your career closet needs and career interviewing needs. So the 3P approach to interviewing, just to kind of wrap up this interview preparation, is the first step is preparing. So again, researching the employer. What's their mission and values? What are some of their big initiatives and goals? How's that line up with you and your overall goals? And really getting reflective in that process. Reading the job description, pulling out language in the job description and putting it into your resume and cover letter, and seeing what have you done and how can it relate to what is needed in this position you're interviewing for. Anticipate questions. So you can always anticipate some questions based on the job description. Like if they mention data management, how do you stay organized? How could you explain how you stay organized? What works and what doesn't work? If you're going to be supervising or leading a team, how do you demonstrate that? How do you give constructive feedback to people below you? So really anticipating questions even from the job description. Outline and scripting your questions that are obvious, like the ones I just mentioned, or within big interview itself. So really scripting those answers and responses. Considering your transferable skills, how do they relate? How can you draw that dot and connect them? And assembling and preparing your wardrobe. Again, you want to spend a few weeks probably making sure you have the right wardrobe pieces. And the career closet is a part of that here at SEC, but also travel plans and materials, things like that. So that's all in the preparation phase. The practicing phase, that's when you utilize your campus resources like us in Career Services, or if you're in a particular program, you might have what we call interviews in the round, which is where you get to practice your interview skills with an employer on campus. So this is a really great opportunity to help you practice those skills and feel confident at the end of that day. You can meet with us in Career Services to help you script out your answers, help you with your job search, resume, or cover letter. So anything and everything we will help you with. It's always good to practice that elevator pitch, the 30-second and 2-minute one on family and friends. Or if you're going to a wedding, for example, you can always practice your elevator pitch at a wedding or at the holidays with your relatives you see once a year. You can always practice it with them. So those are just a few ideas. Big interview, awesome tool, always going to recommend that in the practice phase. But also attended our events like the Professional Etiquette Reception. We have that every spring on the Jackson and Macon campus. And then also come to our job fairs. That's going to give you an opportunity to put that elevator pitch in motion in an interview type setting where the stakes may not be as high, but you're still going to gain valuable practice and experience. There's also the Job Preparation Employability Lab in Oaks, so that's where you can practice with people as well. And then really thinking about those nonverbals, eye contact, if you hesitate with answers, handshake, all of those good things. Really practicing that with people you know and trust. And with Big Interview. Presentation, so personal grooming, a lot of this is leading up that week of personal grooming, dressing for the interview, making sure things are good. Arriving early in parking, so that's a big thing I always recommend is I've shown up an hour before an interview because I get really stressed if I'm running right on time. So something, whatever is good for you, but arriving early is always good. Handshake, practicing the 30-second elevator pitch or the 2-minute synopsis of you. Typically, that is how you can answer the tell me about yourself question, and you will be asked that question. How do you handle group interviews? And really thinking about how can I handle those? Or even Skype interviews, because that is becoming more prominent as a first round. They're going to do a Skype online interview, which are somewhat different than an in-person interview. So even how would you handle that situation? And certainly if you don't know, then you come to us in Career Services. Thinking of how am I going to handle those curveball questions or the ones that I wasn't anticipating, because that's going to happen. So oftentimes I recommend students just kind of say, that's a really good question. I'm going to have to think about that for a second, and then try to wrap your head around it really quick and then give them a response in an interview setting. There's also a tool in Big Interview known as Interview Roulette, which can help you with that curveball question feeling, where it just takes 20 random questions from things you've been practicing and makes it unpredictable in that mock interview. So really good tool as well. And then wrapping up in conclusions, asking about when you're going to hear back from them. And then also thank you notes. Employers love thank you notes, whether it's an email or a handwritten thank you note. They're going to appreciate that, and they're going to remember that when it comes to you. So we have all of these resources on our website. We have Big Interview. We have our website Career Services where you can find information on resume writing, Big Interview, interview preparation, and even job searching, because you got to do the job search before you can do the interview. But for appointments, you can call 828-339-4352. And like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on all of our seminars as well as our events here at SCC.